think this is part of my assignments as the climate champion for COP27, supporting COP28. It's unfortunately to miss the good interventions. I only heard your last words, which I'm going to build on, and it's sad as well that I missed the good wisdom of Professor Sachs and the rest of the speakers. But I know what Professor Sachs may say in this area, given that I've been supporting his work for many years, and my country and others have been benefiting from his honest advice. And he worked hard with many of us, including myself as a special envoy to the Secretary General, on the stimulus. And the stimulus has a simple idea. First, the prevention of harm first, which comes into areas of debt. This is actually in the region, my region, which has the culture of prevention of harm, should be prioritized over bringing the benefits. That is, if ever we are going to be bringing benefits. However, the issue on debt, I was just in meeting with ministers of finance. There is a coalition now for sustainable debt, and they are pushing for some solutions, including debt swaps. And you may have seen the announcement by the IMF managing director talking about a platform to go beyond the transactions of debt swaps into having a system to support debt swaps. There are other initiatives as well linking the work on not just on nature and climate, but SDGs for possibilities of swaps. We are constrained because much of the debt owed by many countries today cannot really benefit from the arrangements of the swaps. And that would be even if you have the credit enhancers, the likes of the TNC and others. So I think we need really to go into the origins of financing sustainable development by the prevention of harm, and to have a proper mix between debt and equity participation, in addition to what we should really be doing in areas related to higher risk kind of investments. You referred to the Vera Songwe next turn report. Of course, many of you have the time to read the full report. If you don't have that time, there is a summary of no more than 22 pages. If you don't have the time, there is a chart, which is simple, that you cited. And here, as I was telling, and we are very much support this work. It was COP27, COP26, and now COP27, COP28 doing it as supporter. But here, what's needed, reforms of the NDBs need to be immediate, and I bet that Professor Sachs may have referred to the need for capital increase of the NDBs. There are limits, even if you are following the suggestions of the CAF, the Capital Adequacy Framework. There are limits for the capacity of these institutions while they are constrained by capital that is not making them relevant to the needs and requirements. And for a typical minister from developing economies today, they have a ceiling for their access to these MDBs that is a fraction of what was offered to their equivalent authorities back 20 years ago. But the requirement here is to have 172 to 220 billion incremental increase. Well, incremental may not be the best description, because this is out of 300 billion. So this is 4 times what we have today. It's a need for the MDBs to be able to provide the support for the developing economies and for the private sector. I was in a meeting with the private sector leaders, and many of them are asking for guarantees, dealing with first losses, instruments to enhance their capacity to get their money back, and dealing with de-risking issues. Without the MDBs reform, the private sector assumption for having $500 billion, of which 400 billion is still missing, that will be under question marks. And then bilateral finance, this is all part of the external finance. This is 110 to 160 billion dollars are required to fund the climate action agenda. And here, the assumption that the MDB should be, again, resourceful, because many countries on bilateral support cannot do their work without having the comfort of being partners with the MDBs. So if we have a kind of a starting point, rather than just pushing the private sector to do what they may not do, because they are always, and legitimately so, after profits, we need really to see the rest of the work that is under the hand or under the control of governments, especially those who are the major shareholders of these MDBs. And then the heavy lifting, if you are assuming that external finance will be available of 1 trillion, and that's only for climate action, which is, by the way, SDG action, no contradiction, and that is settled in this report, and the many good contributions by Professor Sachs and others. Domestic resource mobilization, 1.4 trillion is required to be mobilized. Good luck with that. Debt service is eating already parts of what the essential services are in education and health. So to ask ministers of finance to do better, they may be able to do that if they can really allocate more funds. Instead of subsidizing fossil fuel, they can really reallocate that to other alternatives. And then you need always to be prepared for the disruption to the system, including the impact of IRA. Great news to the US, don't get me wrong. And it's good to see the two parties agreeing on anything useful for their citizens, which is fantastic to see that happening. But that will have negative spillover impact on their competition, not just for developing economies. I met European investors considering moving to the US to enjoy the new industrial policy and the generous subsidy. So here we need to be careful whether these kind of green initiatives are drafted in a way that is taking care of negative spillovers. I will not speak about other disruptions because I'll have an opportunity to speak about that, especially the CBAM. So here, this stimulus is essential, and we have two good opportunities. One with the presidency of Brazil of the G20, and with the hosting of Brazil of COP30. And I really encourage everyone, we don't need just to focus on 2030. Let's focus on the next 2 years, and that worked well. Everything that we pushed in Sharm el-Sheikh to be implemented in the next year, which is this year, we have seen the fruits of loss and damage, the work and the partnership that was announced in the $30 billion, the replenishment of the Green Climate Fund, that if you are going to be having far to reach targets, you may really lose the attention and the momentum going there. However, I had the pleasure of just addressing you to this, of these few comments, and an apology that I have to rush, but I owe you just to be present and commend the excellent work that you are doing. Thank you so much.